So, picture this. It's a crisp autumn day in October of 2009. Out in the vast, rugged wilderness of the Sans Bois Mountains in Oklahoma, a family of 3 is on an adventure. You have Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn, and their bright-eyed 6-year-old daughter Madison. They weren't just on a joyride. They were searching for a dream. They had plans to buy a 40-acre plot of land out here, a remote spot where they could build a new life, far away from the noise and the troubles of their past. They loaded up their white pickup truck, brought along their beloved family dog, and drove deep into the winding mountain roads. It's the kind of normal, hopeful day that thousands of families have. A fresh start, a new chapter. But the Jamison family's chapter would end up being one of the most baffling and disturbing mysteries in modern American history. And the first sign that something was terribly wrong came 8 days after they set out, when a group of hunters stumbled upon their truck. It was abandoned on a desolate dirt road caked in mud. The doors were locked. The engine was off, and as the hunters got closer, they saw movement inside. It was the family dog, Maisie, curled up on the front seat. She was weak, dehydrated, and nearly starved, but she was alive. The hunters immediately called the authorities, assuming the family had maybe gone for a hike and gotten lost. But when police managed to get the truck doors open, the scene inside didn't make any sense. It wasn't the scene of a family planning a short hike. It was the scene of a family that had vanished into thin air, leaving everything they owned behind. Their wallets were there, their car keys were there, their cell phones were there, and tucked away neatly under the driver's seat was a bank bag. Inside that bag was $32,000. In cash. Now, if you think finding a family's entire life savings left behind in an abandoned truck is a detail that makes the hair on your arms stand up, you are going to want to give that like button a very firm, very deliberate press. Because the cash, the dog, and the truck are just the beginning. The story of what happened to the Jamison family only gets weirder, darker, and more mysterious from here. The discovery of the truck launched one of the largest search and rescue operations in Oklahoma's history. Hundreds of volunteers, police officers with canine units, and helicopters scoured the treacherous, unforgiving terrain of the Sans Bois Mountains. The search area was immense. It was a place of thick forests, hidden caves, and steep, rocky ravines. It was absolutely the kind of place a person could get lost and never be found. The initial theory was simple and tragic. The Jamisons had gone looking at that 40-acre plot of land. Their truck got stuck in the mud, and they decided to walk for help. Maybe they underestimated the distance or the harshness of the wilderness. Maybe they succumbed to the elements. It was a logical explanation, but it didn't fit the facts. Why would they lock their dying dog inside the truck? Why would they leave $32,000 behind? A sum of money that could solve almost any problem, and most importantly, if they walked off, where were they? Days turned into weeks, and the search parties found nothing. Not a footprint, not a piece of discarded clothing, not a single sign of Bobby, Sherilyn, or little Madison. It was as if the dense Oklahoma woods had swallowed them whole. With no bodies and no clues from the search, investigators had to turn their attention back to the truck and the lives the Jamisons lived before they disappeared. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn away from a simple missing persons case and into something much stranger. Investigators started by looking at the GPS. They found that just before the truck was abandoned, Bobby had taken a photo with his cell phone. It was the last piece of data from the family. The photo was of his 6-year-old daughter, Madison, and she did not look happy. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't posing. She was standing with her arms crossed, a tense and unhappy look on her face, staring back at the person taking the picture. It's an unsettling image. It doesn't feel like a sweet family photo. It feels confrontational. Was she looking at her father, or was someone else there with them? Then the police started digging into Bobby and Sherilyn's background, and a portrait of a deeply troubled family began to emerge. They were not the happy, hopeful couple they might have seemed. Friends and family described them as increasingly paranoid in the months leading up to their disappearance. They had lost a significant amount of weight and often appeared gaunt and malnourished. They spoke of being in danger, but their threats were vague and hard to pin down. The investigators uncovered that Bobby Jameson had been in a severe car accident years prior, leaving him with chronic, debilitating pain. This might explain his slow, almost zombie-like gait that was captured on a home security camera as they were packing the truck the day they left. He wasn't walking like a healthy man. He was moving like someone in agony. Sherilyn also had a dark past. Her sister had died under mysterious circumstances years before, and Sherilyn herself suffered from severe bipolar disorder and depression. But the strangest information came from their own pastor. He told police that the Jamesons weren't just paranoid, they believed their house was haunted. They claimed they were living with spirits, not friendly spirits either. They said these entities were violent and malevolent. Sherilyn had apparently become very interested in witchcraft and spiritualism, and had even bought a book that friends called her Witch's Bible to try and combat the presence in their home. The pastor said the family had told him the spirits would climb onto the roof at night and whisper their names. They were so convinced of this spiritual war that Bobby had asked the pastor if he knew where to get special bullets to shoot the spirits. The family wasn't just looking for land to start a new life, they were running from something they believed was trying to destroy them. And then, investigators found one more piece to this bizarre puzzle, back at the Jamesons' home. Written on the side of the large storage container that sat on their property, someone had scrawled a chilling, hateful message. It read, "Witches don't like it when their black cat is killed." Police could never determine who wrote it or what it meant. Was it a threat from a neighbor, a message from a cult? Or was it, as some started to whisper, a message from the very same spirits the family was trying to escape? The case had grown cold. For 4 long years, there was nothing. The truck sat in an evidence lot, the cash sat in a vault, and the ghost of the Jameson family haunted the Sans Bois Mountains. The theories swirled, each more desperate than the last. The leading police theory was that the family had been the victims of a drug deal gone wrong. The remote location and the large amount of cash certainly pointed in that direction. Perhaps they weren't buying land at all, but were meeting someone to buy or sell methamphetamine, a drug that plagued that rural part of the country. Maybe the deal went sour and they were executed and buried somewhere in the vast wilderness. It was a clean, albeit brutal explanation, but it had problems. Friends and family swore the Jamesons were not involved in drugs, and a thorough search of their home and their past turned up no evidence to support it. Another theory was a murder-suicide. Police knew that Sherilyn battled with severe depression. In the truck, they found an angry 11-page letter written from her to Bobby, filled with rage and resentment. It painted a picture of a deeply broken marriage. And her own mother had told investigators that she believed her daughter was in a spiritual standoff and was capable of violence. Perhaps in a moment of despair, Sherilyn had harmed her family before taking her own life. But again, where were the bodies? If it was a murder-suicide, it had been carried out with impossible precision, leaving no trace behind. And then there was the theory that the family had simply gotten lost and perished. But the more you looked at the details, the less sense it made. They had their GPS, they had their cell phones, even though service was spotty, and they had their dog. It's almost unheard of for a family to abandon their dog to die in a locked car while they wander off into the woods. Dogs are excellent survivors and trackers. Maisie would have been their best chance of finding their way back to a road. Leaving her behind just didn't add up. So for 4 years, that was it. A collection of strange clues, disturbing stories, and impossible questions. The Jameson family had become a ghost story, a piece of local folklore. People who ventured into those mountains would talk about them in hushed tones, wondering what really happened on that lonely dirt road. The hope of ever finding them had all but faded. And then, in November of 2013, everything changed. A group of deer hunters were pushing through a particularly remote and desolate corner of the mountains, about 2.7 miles from where the Jamesons' truck had been found, and there, lying in the dirt, partially covered by leaves and forest debris, they found skeletal remains. It didn't take long for the medical examiner to confirm what everyone had feared for 4 years. It was them. The remains of Bobby, Sherilyn, and 6-year-old Madison had finally been discovered. The discovery of the bodies should have been the end of the mystery. It should have provided answers, but instead, it only created more questions. The official cause of death for all 3 of them was listed as undetermined. The medical examiner couldn't find any evidence of what killed them. The bones showed no signs of trauma, no bullet holes, no knife marks, no broken bones from a fall or an animal attack. They had just died. And the position of the bodies was just as strange. They were found lying side by side, face down in the dirt, as if they had simply laid down for a rest and never gotten back up. It wasn't the scattered, chaotic scene you would expect from people who had been attacked or had died struggling against the elements. It was quiet. It was orderly, and it was inexplicable. Lying near Sherilyn's skull, investigators found a small-caliber pistol that had belonged to her. This immediately brought the murder-suicide theory back to the forefront, but when the gun was examined, it was found that 2 rounds had been fired from it. Investigators scoured the area around the bodies, but they could find no bullets, no casings, and no indication that this gun was the cause of death. It was just another dead end. The discovery of the bodies just a few miles from the truck also made the initial search look tragically flawed. How could hundreds of searchers with dogs and helicopters have missed them? The location wasn't that far away, but the terrain was so dense and rugged that authorities concluded it was entirely possible they were simply overlooked, hidden by the thick brush and rocky ground. So now, you have the bodies, but no cause of death. You have the truck, but no reason for it to be abandoned. You have the cash, but no explanation for why it was left behind. You have the hateful message on the container, but no one to claim it. And you have that last haunting photograph of Madison Jamison, her little face a mask of unhappiness, staring into the lens. Who was she looking at? What was happening in that moment just before her family disappeared from the face of the earth? The case of the Jamison family remains officially unsolved to this day. There is no consensus on what happened. Did a drug deal in the remote woods turn deadly? Did a deeply troubled mother snap and lead her family to a quiet, lonely death? Did they simply get lost and die in a way that left no mark upon their bodies? Or is the answer something that logic and reason cannot explain? You go back to the stories the family told their pastor, stories of spirits on their roof, of a war with dark entities in their home. You think about Sherilyn's witch's Bible and the strange message about the black cat. You think about a family so terrified they were willing to abandon everything and flee into the wilderness. And you have to ask yourself, what if they were right? What if they weren't running from a person but from a presence? What if the thing they were fighting in their home followed them into those mountains? And what if in that desolate, lonely place it finally won? We may never know the truth of what happened to the Jamison family. All that's left is the chilling mystery they left behind. A story of a normal family who drove into the mountains searching for a dream and found an incomprehensible nightmare instead.